Thank you everybody for joining. I see we already have attendees joining. This is NAMI Piedmont Tri-County with some of our local area resources. We hope to be here today to answer some of your questions on how it is to support your families and your youth and adults who are either struggling with their mental health or who are just having a hard time with what they've lost and everything that's going on with the pandemic. We're going to spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes each briefly talking about the question that we posed initially, and then I will open it up for questions. We are recording the webinar, so if you want to come back later, it will be available to all attendees later on, and I'll also post it onto Facebook with everybody's links. If you want to pose a question, if you have a question for the panelists, if you can do it one of two ways. You can either go ahead and use the chat box and type the question in there, and I will read the questions at the end of the presentation. But if you also would prefer to talk and speak to your question, raise your hand and I will open up your microphone. And we want this to be an interactive discussion. And so we would like the opportunity to keep answering the questions as they come up. So without further ado, we should be broadcasting live to Facebook, and I'm going to let each of the participants, the panelists, introduce themselves, and then we'll start with our first question. So Alex, would you introduce yourself briefly, please?
Absolutely. I am Alex Greenawalt. I'm the Prevention Director at Keystone Substance Abuse Services in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And we are right across the street from Piedmont Hospital. And in my department, we're doing a lot of outreach in the community to hopefully get people the resources and connect to help. At Keystone, we are an addiction center, and so I'd be glad to help connect anybody on this call today.
Judy?
My name is Judy Rauppius. I work with NAMI South Carolina as the Regional Program Manager for our Ending the Silence program in the northern region of South Carolina. We work with students, staff, and families, educating them on mental health, understanding symptoms, stigma, healthy coping strategies, and suicide. Right now, we have been, forced to do webinars instead of face-to-face presentations, and we have been doing quite a few webinars for families at this time that have been very successful. And some of the things that I've heard parents ask questions about and raise concerns about are very closely related to some of the things that we're talking about as far as grief goes. There's a real concern for our students because they're missing out on some of the social activities that they were used to having at school, just that connectedness. And, anecdotally, I've heard some things about, they were doing well in the beginning because they were using Zoom or they were doing FaceTime and they were doing different things, but now some of that has subsided. So, they're facing challenges of trying to, keep their kids connected with their friends, and then on a personal level, I have two children. One is actually a senior in college. So I've been dealing with some of the things that she's been dealing with as far as not being able to celebrate the way she had hoped she would be celebrating during this time. She'd be preparing for graduation and, parties and concerts and celebrations for recognition, all kinds of things that we, take for granted. But so anyway, that's something that I've been having to, work her through. And then I have another child who has autism, and I'm really struggling to get him to be motivated to do things. He really has been isolating more, and he's always been a very social individual. So, on a personal level, I've been working with that. So it's touched me personally as well as, dealing with parents. So anyway.
Thank you. Thank you. That really helps to have that background. Ashli?
Hi, I'm Ashli Watts. I'm the Executive Director of York County All on Board Coalition. And I actually have a background in addiction counseling. I worked at Keystone Substance Abuse Services in Rock Hill for about 22 years. I worked with adolescents and prevention, with adults, with the women program, our withdrawal management, and our residential program. So I kind of did the gamut there. And then transitioned in October into my position with All on Board, kind of focusing on prevention, especially with youth, but throughout York County. We have a variety of subcommittees that work with everything from the opioid epidemic to scripts, working on script monitoring, as well as raising awareness for parents and students, which is kind of what we work with NAMI with sometimes, to make sure kids are getting educated and information. And then our coalition actually has an all youth on board club, which is a group of high school students who are prevention based, and they help us with initiatives. We had a big talent show in March, actually the week before all this kind of came to a head, and it was a really fun event, and it was kind of like going from a really high to a complete standstill. And that's been something. So we Zoomed actually with our kids yesterday, our youth club yesterday, and talked to some of them. For many of them, today is their last day for seniors, their last day of Zoom classes online. So I do feel like kind of what you mentioned was there is going to be kind of maybe even more unsettling as they don't have that schedule of getting up and getting online. Personally, I have two college students that came home in March early. And so my empty nest got filled up really quickly, which was fun, but now we're kind of working through that. My daughter's last day of classes was, or last exam was Monday. And even she has talked about, she doesn't feel that release kind of stress that you normally feel, because it's been she doesn't know about her summer job plans. She doesn't know about next semester. My son's the same way. He's trying to find a job in this job market to spend any money for next year. So I've kind of understood that having everybody home all of a sudden and them having that feeling like, I don't think that they've put the name grief to it, but I think that's what it kind of is. And it's really hard to get acceptance on that, because we don't really have an end in sight. We don't really know. It's so unknown. So that's just kind of the perspective that I'm coming from.
Thank you for sharing, Ashli. Leia?
Yes. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Leia Charnin, much like Princess Leia in Star Wars. It's the easiest way to remember it. I work in Charlotte, North Carolina, just over the border, and I'm at Southeast Psych. I have a lot of experience and history in working in a couple of different settings: residential hospitals, Veterans Affairs hospital as well, and universities. And so different populations ranging from adolescents to young adults and veterans. And the ways in which that's looked in my clinical work is doing a lot of work with depression, anxiety, and then trauma work and women's issues in particular. And speaking to many of the themes that were just mentioned by Judy, Alex, and Ashli, I'm thinking about, I've had so many questions of how much structure is too much structure, or how do I just help my teens connect with each other? Because I have a good number of teenagers on the caseload. This is, I don't know if others are experiencing this, but I think at I've lost sense of time, but week 4 or 5 of this, this is no longer new, yet it's still a transition period, and it continues to be a period of uncertainty. And that's the word that continues to come up for me, is just so much uncertainty. And change in and of itself is already hard enough. And we are having change in so many different domains of our lives. Relationally and financially, and just these dreams and hopes that we had for what was going to be next. And that all has to change, that narrative and the difficulty that's associated with this. So I'm getting asked a lot of questions of just how do I respond to my kids? So I'm having a lot of conversations about that validation piece. Ashli just mentioned acceptance. And acceptance doesn't mean you have to like it. It can totally suck, right? This does, and we're not alone in that. Personally, I think about my family. My mom is a more vulnerable population, and she has just had so much fear and anxiety for her wellness and mine. And my brother struggles with depression. And so I'm in this space of holding the loved ones that I have, and also trying to offer support to others. And so some questions that have come up too is just how do we hold all of this while taking care of ourselves. How do we hold our children and what they're going through? So I imagine we're all seeing really similar themes in these regards, and the fear of, are we doing the best that we can? And that's one of the messages I really want to send out there, that no one had a roadmap for how to manage a pandemic. And I think we really are all doing the best we can. And that opening up questions and having conversations is one of the ways to lean into that. So I'm just appreciative for this space for us to all talk together.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's very much what I think we're all seeing and thinking. And Betsey?
Yes, hi, I'm Betsey O'Brien. I'm the Executive Director for NAMI Piedmont Tri-County, and I'm just delighted that everybody is able to join us, the panel, as well as all the guests that are joining this webinar. This is really important to understand what kind of things you and your family are going through. Lots of depression, lots of anxiety. The good thing for us in one way, because we've got to always find a silver lining, is that mental health has just really taken a front seat, which, you know, usually we're pushed way in the back. Let's not talk about it. But now it seems that a lot of people are recognizing that more people, you know, everybody is stressed out now, not just folks who maybe were concerned about having a diagnosis, but we're talking about everybody and how to stay well. And that all trickles down to all of the folks that we at NAMI love and support. So one of the things we've had to do is we've made that leap to online services like really quickly. So support groups once a week for individuals that live with a mental health condition, once a week for family members of those who live with a mental health condition. So ways that people can tap in and stay connected, because one of the things we want to make sure in this time, we want to say physical distancing versus social distancing, because we are, as human beings, we're social animals. So we want to stay connected. Isolating isn't good for us. So whatever you do that you can stay connected, and this goes for everyone on this panel, everyone who's on this call, and children and everybody, try to stay connected, FaceTime, online, different methods that you can use, things that you can see your friends, be with your friends, you know, have phone dates with a coffee with another friend that you haven't seen for 6 weeks. You know, so it's important to physically distance, but socially stay connected. So I will just let you go on then, Katie, with question.
Okay, well, we have like the first, what we wanted to do was pretty much what we just talked about. Does anybody want to kind of add to the initial question, which was, you know, the coping strategies and that families can use, and especially people who are doing things, you know, for children and furloughed workers and people who have workers who have to leave the house, whether, you know, they're in a hospital or whether they're in a grocery store, or, you know, a lot of parents are concerned about their kids doing their grocery store jobs, you know, that we hear that a lot. A lot of people are concerned about just having to go to work. A lot of people live by themselves and have to go to the store. And most people have heard by now, I was pretty public on Instagram, on the NAMI Instagram, that I did get COVID. And the psychological impact of that for me was worse than the illness in a lot of ways. So what can you all, sorry about that, what can you all offer as, you know, just ways that people can support themselves? And then we'll go into the questions that we've already had submitted. But what can each of you offer on, you know, how do you support positively yourselves in that? If you can give us some kind of ideas on what you're already thinking.
I have a short little thing, and then I'll let some of the other folks say something. But one of the things that typically we do as parents or loved ones is we try to calm things down by just, you know, don't worry about that. I think one of the things we really need to do is listen. And if our children or if our partner is stressed about job, or the kids are worried about summer jobs or seeing their friends, or missing prom or a birthday party that's important, I think we just need to listen and really recognize the feelings that they're sharing. I hear how frustrated you are. Respond back to them that you are connected with them, instead of doing what we can often want to do is make things better by just saying, oh, it's going to be okay, just give it another month. But we have to hear them and recognize what it is they're dealing with. These are real feelings.
Thank you, Betsy. Does anybody else?
I was just going to say that I couldn't agree more, Betsy, because I was accused of not being very empathetic one day, listening to my daughter. And honestly, it's because I really didn't even know how to respond. I really just didn't know how to respond. And once I realized that I had to actually, get down and say, this really does suck, and it really is awful for you, then you can have more honest communication. And really, when we're empathetic, we can build more trust with our loved ones. So yeah, so I wasn't always practicing good listening skills, but but my daughter reminded me. So
And just to kind of add off of what Judy said with being empathetic and having that empathy, is you got to have your own self-help as well, because a lot of our children are going to model our own behaviors. And so if they're seeing mom, the family, the caregiver stress, they're going to start showing those signs as well. So finding your own self-help, how do you respond to negativity? How do you respond just what's going on right now, and modeling positive reactions for your teens and your children to learn from is a great coping strategy for the whole family.
Thank you.
I also think that this activates a lot of thoughts of like, what can we do? A lot of us are going into like doing mode or retreat mode. And I think about like, what behaviors are activated by the emotional responses that we have. So for example, if I'm feeling really, really afraid, am I someone who I'm going to pull away and retreat and say like, nope, I'm out of this? Or am I someone who's going to lean in and do, and then we get exhausted too? And so I'm talking a lot to families, and particularly parents who are so afraid for the well-being of their kids, because that's their world, of course. And so they're wanting to lean into the doing part. And then teens are sometimes feeling overwhelmed by that. And so I'm having a lot of conversations about this collaboration. Like, how do we work together in terms of what your teens need or what you need right now? And just looking at that behavior of what our tendency is, how is that serving us? And if that's serving you and working for you and your family, awesome. And we're just being openly curious about what are these things that we tend to lean into. I know for a couple of days, I've been really feeling down myself. And so I was kind of in this like slump, non-action, self-criticism. And then I gently was talking to that. I talk a lot about like this piece of, earlier I had mentioned this idea of being gentle with ourselves, kind to ourselves, speaking to, do we talk to ourselves in the same way that we talk to others? Oftentimes we're our own worst critics, right? Mm-hmm. And so at what space can we meet ourselves in gentleness and with another person? Because a lot of, I'm hearing about family conflict, right? Like we're all stir crazy right now too. And so irritability is increasing, like arguments, and that it's not necessarily about the argument that just happened, but there tends to be something deeper, like what Betsy was speaking to. What's the deeper piece? Is this person feeling unheard? Do we need to just like sit together for a moment, or honestly say it's okay to take some space from each other right now? And so I think about the behaviors we observe, and also what are our choices? And our choices can say to be, can we just join together or find this shared meaning in the lives that we are living together that values? So those are a lot of the themes that are coming up as we are coming up with these questions of, I don't know what to do, and how do I figure this time out? Those are some things that I've noticed.
Thank you. Ashli, did you have a comment on all that? Or?
I was just going to say, I was reading something about just this collective loss of normalcy you know, that we all are experiencing it, and just acknowledging, yes, that's not normal. You know, when we moved my daughter out of her dorm, we were on a schedule. We were the only people in the whole dorm moving out, and it was sad. Her roommates weren't there, and it was just a really sad time. And it was so different, I think, from moving her in and the excitement and people everywhere. And so I was just acknowledging this isn't normal, but also being able to say, like, we've been, my daughter's big on exercise, and so she's been having me, she's my new fitness coach. So even when I don't want to, after a day at work, she's like, we need to walk. And that walk, I said to her the other day on a walk, I said, you know, this isn't normal, and I hate you're missing your friends, but one thing I'll never forget about this time is how much time we've had together to talk, and how much I've gotten to hear about your life and your, you know, and that's, I think it's important to realize that with all the loss, there's also some gains, and they may be small, or they may not be what we wanted them to be. But I think reframing and allowing, even for our children, you know, saying, boy, you've gotten to spend a lot of time with mom and dad, haven't you? Or, man, we've had a lot of time to do this, or be outside. Or, I mean, you know, one thing I've learned is not isolating, but more being aware of when I'm feeling, I almost call it my COVID, like, you know, the hypervigilance, and that, you know, you can watch the news, or you just start feeling yourself kind of roll into anxiety. I just, for myself, if I go outside and I practice mindfulness about listening to the birds, I mean, that's a normal thing. I can still hear the birds, or feeling the wind on my face, or the sun. Just simple things like that, but bringing myself from projecting into the future into thinking about what's happening right now. How does my skin feel right now with the sun coming down? How does it feel to sit outside for a minute and have a deep breath, or throw the ball to I have a lab who loves to play ball that will play it all day long. So it's nice, you know, I've thought about her, and she's enjoyed our time at home. and you know what? I would not take for granted having a pet that your kid, both of my children have been hugging and loving on our pets more, because we do miss that interaction. I'm a hugger. I'm a hands-on, you know, I love to be around people. I'm an extrovert. Been going into an empty office building for a while now, and it's been rough. I mean, I'm thankful I get to go into an office, but being there, the only person in the building, has been a challenge. And sometimes I just need to acknowledge that, but also say, well, but I'm getting a lot of stuff done. There's no distractions, you know. So I guess reframing and just making that a part of your family. Like we were talking the other day about how many we've probably eaten better than we've ever eaten in our whole lives, because we're planning. What else do you have to do? We're planning, you know, vegetables and where we can do this. And so we're spending our time as a family discussing meals, preparing them together. That's been a really fun thing, is us working together in the kitchen. So I know those are small things, but I do think reframing negative situations, not listening and acknowledging that things are hard, but also trying to not only just acknowledge that things are hard, but try to pick out of that conversation something you can kind of play with to reframe it into a more positive mindset. Because if we all are just looking for negatives, I feel like it kind of puts a cloud on the family, if that makes sense. Like if we just start complaining, we can all think of 100 things we've lost or that are sad. But if you just start with, but we've done this and we've done that, not listening to the negatives, but just focusing on the positives, to me is something that's really helped me. And I personally am a spiritual person. And so whatever your spirituality is, I think being in touch with that, really spending some time meditating or alone has really helped me as well.
Thank you. So I'm going to throw a bit of a wrench into this for everybody. And I want to start thinking more on, because I know a lot of our families have children who struggle with their mental health. And quite often those children are not the children that are in the kitchen cooking a meal with the family, and they're not the children that are compliant with their schoolwork. And they're also not the children who are perhaps the ones that enjoy being around other people. So I'm asking for a friend. But so when we start thinking about the answers that we're given, and a lot of the people that will, kind of benefit from this, some of us have children who are very compliant. Can you all hear me?
You're breaking up a bit.
Am I? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not sure Oh, there we go. Is that better?
Much.
Yeah, I think it's our internet is so great. Rural living. But so a lot of our families are struggling because the children are already combative. The children are already, struggling. And some of our adults with mental health live with our families, and they're struggling with their mental health. They don't want to be around people. And it becomes more of a hot button when they're forced to spend extra time with people. So as we go through these questions, if we could start thinking, again, on that level as well, what can we do to support those families through this as well? The more difficult families, the ones that we don't tend to see nicely on Facebook and stuff, So I'd like to speak to that as well, to all genres, but specifically to those kind of struggling families. So I'm going to start asking some questions that we had already gotten into. One of them has come in on Facebook. It's this is specifically more for Alex and the prevention specialist. But have you seen an increase in alcohol use? It seems to be more easily accessible at this time. And do you have any tips for managing that?
Wonderful question. So right now, as far as what Keystone's seeing, our intake for assessments are pretty low. And I think that's just more so everyone is trying to stay at home. And so currently at Keystone, we're not seeing a spike in people coming through our doors for an alcohol use disorder, but I wouldn't be surprised to see post-pandemic what it will look like for us. But some great resources. The first thing is if you, a loved one, a child, anybody you feel like might be experiencing any sort of substance use disorder, whether it's alcohol or anything else, Keystone's still open right now, and we're offering assessments, which are free from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. All you have to do is give us a call, and that number is going to be 803-324-1800. And the beauty, essentially, in all of this that's going on right now with the pandemic is we are offering virtual counseling. And I don't know what's better than sitting at home with their PJs on, feet kicked up on the couch, and being able to get some therapy and help for yourself. That, for me, is my type of therapy. So we're still working with a lot of people right now. But if treatment isn't where you or somebody you know, if they're not at that point right now, there are some really great resources that are out there. And something that kind of just came across my desk a few weeks ago is a texting number. And you can text the word reduce, REDUCE, to 55753. And it's a free program that you can get through your phone, and it's going to kind of talk you through some information, see where you're at with your levels of drinking, and try to help target and reduce the alcohol consumption. So that's something we can all easily do within our own households. I am seeing articles out there with trends in alcohol consumption, and this just goes back to what I said earlier. Parents, you have to remember that you're the role model in your household. So your children and teens are going to look up to your behaviors. And at the end of the day, one of the biggest factors when it comes to substance use, starting to dabble in it with these young kids, are our parents setting consequences in the household and our parents modeling positive behaviors themselves. So keep that in mind. There's nothing wrong with responsible drinking, and reminding your kids that drinking responsibly is fine. And I can get into a little bit more detail later if anyone wants to pose questions. I can dig into that if I need to.
Thank you for that. Did anybody else have any comments on the use of alcohol? I have seen a lot of social media with people, making comments and fun about drinking, which of course we do. But does anybody else want to comment on the alcohol and substance abuse that may be increasing?
This is Betsey, and I want to just make sure that there are a lot of us that may turn to substances just to make us feel a little bit better and cope with some of the stressors that we're dealing with. So there may be an underlying mental health condition there. So just, you know, just be aware of that. So, because I think it's, Alex, I'm not sure what the statistic is exactly, but it's 60-something% of folks who have a substance abuse issue also have an underlying mental health condition. So it is a way for folks to cope. So.
Absolutely, Betsy. And at the end of the day, the alcohol is a depressant on the body. So if you already have, you know, antidepressants in your system, you're feeling anxious or stressed, you're actually worsening it. In that short term, when you're drinking and there might be a buzz or some type of feeling that you're having, that's a short-term effect. As soon as that wears off, the anxiety and stress is usually there, but even worse after the fact. So please definitely keep that in mind, that it's not your healthy coping strategy.
Okay.
Yeah, I think just to add briefly, I was thinking about also increase in other substances that I've seen, particularly pot use in my clientele. And a conversation I have very often is how that also affects the motivation to engage in other adaptive behaviors, and also really particularly our sleep. Like, we think about just how important sleep is for regulating our systems, and that even though it might seem like it's relaxing you to help you go to sleep, it's actually really interfering with the quality of your REM cycle and the stages in which we get quality sleep, which is then the next day going to affect our motivation, our memory, our focus, and it just becomes this cyclical pattern. So you continue to feel very drained, to add to that piece of the depressant and just what Alex was sharing. So it sounds like we're all seeing similar themes in that regard too.
And we probably should talk about more about what people can do when they feel like they're reaching for the glass of red wine, or they're reaching for the pot, or you know, the coping strategies that especially, you know, again, we've seen kind of a lot of memes because kids are home and stuff. What else could somebody do? It's good to say don't reach for it, but because it's going to make you more depressed. But practically, what more could they do for themselves? You know, how could they access help in those moments of stress to get them through the moment? You know, while they don't, so they don't go for those coping strategies. Give us some good tools and tips that they can do to stop themselves. Alex, Leia?
I was going to say, I feel like we all have good ones. Leia, if you want to go ahead, and then Ashley and I or whoever else can bounce off of that.
I appreciate that. Now, I was just going to say how much I nerd out over mindfulness and relaxation strategies. It was already mentioned earlier, I think, by you, Ashley, and in our text conversation. I personally even have been like on a kick again of using my Calm app. I integrate this into many of my sessions, especially dealing with anxiety. Like we did a visualization today for a teen who's having trouble with her anxiety of reaching out to others, yet we know that she needs to. And so her behavior urge is to clam up. So we did a visualization of what would it be like to reach out to that person, and noticing the discomfort. How do you move through the emotional experience? So these types of mindfulness exercises, being in the present moment. What are the emotions I'm trying to run away from? How do I speak to that, right? And so I'm a huge, huge fan of that. I also, though, speak to a different therapy that I provide where we do a lot of distress tolerance skills. So in the moment, if we're really, really distressed, we're feeling like our body's very activated. Have you all ever noticed that, like, when you're really ticked off or really upset, we get hot? So for example, grabbing like a bag of ice, sticking your head in the fridge, doing, like, if your body is physically capable, doing some intense exercises like squats in your bedroom, running around for a moment. That changing the body temperature and the physiological state also helps to calm that system that gets really, really active, which is our limbic system. So those are the two strategies I go to really often. I imagine many of you do too, and I would love to hear from all the others as well.
I just wanted to kind of touch on one thing that's important for anyone who's using alcohol or other substances, especially someone who's in early recovery or seeking recovery, is to realize community support is vital, really, to a person sustaining recovery or engaging in recovery activities. And it is hard because they're used to meeting in groups and in meetings together and getting that support. So I would encourage people to check out websites within the rooms, just like NAMI is doing virtual support. They're doing support meetings. You can find a meeting anytime, day or night. There's a lot of really good resources out there. Celebrate Recovery is more of a Christian-based community. In the Rooms is a great resource. If you go to SAMHSA, they have a whole list of resources through Al-Anon. For family members, Al-Anon, there's also Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, and you're going to be able to find some support. And actually, I did a podcast that I posted yesterday with a clinical counselor from Keystone, Frank Henson, and he talks exactly about some warning signs for your use. It's on Spotify. It's called Close to Home, but if you want to, it's also on our Facebook, and Keystone also shared it on theirs. But I recommend, it's 28 minutes, but he talks about some mindfulness. He talks about some self-care techniques. One of the things that I've read a lot about is, we are being challenged to reframe our whole coping mechanisms. So for me, coping would be going out to dinner with some friends and talking, being like, I'm talking honest talk, like this is what's really going on, not Facebook, this is what's really going on in my family. And I miss that with my friends, and we can text or call, but it's not the same. So we're recommending people go back to the basics, still reach out and FaceTime your friends, still, text your friends and say alert or help. I need somebody to, I need help to talk about this, or reach out to those things, and encourage your children to do that as well. My kids do not like to talk on the phone at all, but I've heard them FaceTiming more, and I've encouraged them to FaceTime more because it's just not the same. A text is not the same as seeing somebody face to face. And so we want to encourage that for support groups, and we want to encourage that as well. And getting back to the basics, am I eating well? Am I sleeping well? Am I exercising? Am I taking a hot bath? Those are silly things, but I have found I need to get up and get dressed and put on my makeup. I'm sure everybody else appreciates that too, but for me, it's a routine. And one trigger for alcohol and drug use is a loss of a schedule or routine, especially for people in early recovery. A routine is very important. Many of them go to a meeting every day. I would encourage them to continue to do that online, but to keep as much of a schedule in your life as you can. If you can eat meals at the same time, if you can get up at a certain time, that's important, because if we're sleeping till 11, then guess what? We're probably gonna have a hard time going to sleep, at a normal time. So keeping yourself on a regulated schedule, and trying, if at all possible, trying to be mindful of other people in your home schedule as well, which might be a challenge. But so those are some things that I think, but I definitely think isolating is a warning sign that you're not dealing with the situation very well. Being hypervigilant, like constantly worrying, just being aware that, hey, this is a normal part of grief. But when I start getting to that level, and when I start really increasing my alcohol use, that's a concern. That's something that's not just probably going to stop when COVID is over. It's something that I might be having to deal with long term. So I'm just compounding the problem. So being very honest with those around us. I have heard that there has been an increase in alcohol sales in North Carolina. I haven't seen South Carolina's, but we are monitoring that through some of our programs, looking at alcohol to go from restaurants and just the ease of alcohol sales. So it is a concern. I've seen the kind of memes and jokes online too, and I think but it's kind of harmful sometimes to make fun of those situations, because there are people who, it's not just one glass of wine or two, it's starting to, especially as time goes by, eventually that's not going to do it anymore, and they're going to start reaching for more. And we want to be really careful about coping with a substance instead of dealing with things as they are, because you're just prolonging it. If we're trying to numb or escape with dopamine, it triggers for a little while, but like you said, you're going to have that kind of bounce back, and it's going to feel worse. So we need to be really conscious of the fact I'm starting a cycle that's not going to be healthy for me long term. So it's something I really want to monitor, and maybe get on to one of those groups and talk about, or call and talk to a counselor at Keystone. Even if you're not wanting to come in for assessment, there are counselors available for you to talk to. There's crisis counselors who you can talk to there. So I would recommend definitely, if you have a therapist or even consulting someone, just to ask, hey, this is happening. What do you think about this? Or definitely online groups are free, so I don't see any reason, you know, it's an anonymous way to get in touch with others.
And last thing to just kind of add to that, I think Ashli covered a lot of the basic coping skills that anybody can do, from the sleep to eating nutritious. But a lot of the work I do with the youth in classroom settings and the schools are talking about natural highs. So a natural high is releasing the dopamine. And when you use any form of a substance, alcohol, vaping, a Juul with nicotine in it, using marijuana, so on and so forth, it's triggering the release of dopamine throughout our brain and causing that euphoric high. And we can do natural highs all on our own, whether you're a runner, you're not a runner, just going for a walk outside, enjoying the sunshine, feeling the sun on your face. For some people, it's gardening, fishing, walking the dog, washing the dog. Everybody has their own hobbies, their own passion, and I encourage so many people to try and tap in, trying to find different things that you love to do, and then incorporating that into your structure daily, so that you have something to look forward to and something that makes you happy.
Thank you so much. We did have one comment that bounced off of my comment, which was, you know, we don't live Norman Rockwell lives, and waiting for the other shoe to drop and walking on eggshells is probably the biggest challenge that a lot of even parents of older adult people with mental health conditions are struggling with right now. And I think the aggression and the combativeness has definitely increased in a lot of houses, and it's not, you know, typically it's something that we're all kind of trying to manage, and so that's going to lead me into some more questions. So keep that in the back of your mind, because I think that a lot of the questions for NAMI specifically come from people with you know, either adults or children with mental health conditions, which tend to be a little bit more challenging anyway, right, in just in general. So there's so this one in specifically, it's so hard to work at home and get my kids motivated and doing their schoolwork. Please give me some ideas on how to make this work for me. I am exhausted and frustrated all the time. It isn't fair. So, and just for what it's worth, one of mine is doing no schoolwork at all because I cannot fight that fight. So I have one that's basically sequestered himself for the rest of the year. So we'll see how that works out. But just raise your hand if you want to go, and then just unmute yourself so we know.
I'm mindful I've been talking a lot, so if anyone else wants to jump in too, I can pause.
Keep talking.
Okay. Well, I raised my hand because I'm hearing this a lot from families, and it's kind of transitioned week to week. So initially it was, let us have like all the structure. We're going to go gung ho, like into this fire, and everyone's going to be motivated and it's going to be great. And now at this point, and then it got to tensions and build up, and now at this point it's either there or retreat behaviors, or kind of this like radical acceptance of like what you were just describing, like, okay, this is it. This is like where I need to meet my team, that maybe right now, like, they're not going to be as engaged. So I know it's different for every family. I also do work with a lot of the higher conflict families. That's kind of become my thing. It's challenging. It really is. And I hear how much of a struggle that is for some families. I've heard behaviors like lying about schoolwork. Yeah, I turned it in. And then 2 weeks later, it wasn't turned in. And then it turns into a very larger conversation and conflict about, why did you lie about this? What was happening here? Your schoolwork's important. Or even something bigger, like I work with a lot of teens who have self-injury behaviors or thoughts. And so this is to say and validate those families out there that are just so worried for the safety, the wellness of your teens. And I know it's all not. Just go out and just do this and it'll all be okay. So what I try to do in a couple of different ways as a therapist and talk to families about, one, we've talked about already, the validation piece. So I'm not going to speak too much about that. Two, I talk a lot about shared meaning and values. What is the value of doing schoolwork for their team? There's probably not much value in doing a math assignment. Let's face it. Like, even as, I was a nerd, but I still didn't have a lot of value in like, oh, this is so much fun, I'm going to sit down and do my homework. No. However, there might be value in the process of learning, or perhaps getting like self-respect, feeling proud of oneself. There's something deeper within that. Or the reward and kind of the cherry on the icing or on the cake, so to speak, is we're going to have less family conflict if you do this. Or, hey, like, can we do positive reinforcement? So positive reinforcement is actually associated more so with increasing behaviors that we want. We talk a lot as families about negative reinforcement. So I'm going to take away something. I'm going to take away phone time. Ooh, that's causing some conflict right now, especially because phone time is like one of the biggest sources connections that individuals have to others right now. So instead of taking away something for punishment and changing behavior, I talk a lot about reinforcement. What can you add to your person's life to say, hey, let's do more of this behavior. Let's do more schoolwork or more chores at home. Honestly, that's another battle I'm hearing a lot. And if you do this, you will get more phone time or social media time, or you will get, one of my teens honestly just went on a board game night with her family, or you will get to, trying to think, after this is all said and done, that we'll go to the mall together. Like some of these things of what is it uniquely for your teen that will be important for them, or your loved one. And so I really try to get down to how do we put some sugar in the pot and increase the behavior, but also get down to a deeper meaning for the individual, that this is also about not just this one assignment or this one moment. It's about how you're feeling about yourself and how you're all creating connection and meaning in the family. And that might just be, hey, the positive reinforcement is I might just really not want to argue anymore. And taking some conversation around that. Another way that I've approached this too is having conversation about, all right, so what are you willing to do? Like, how is there some buy-in here? Are you willing to do the dishes every other night? And I have a lot of teens, surprisingly, when I open up that conversation, they're like, yeah, I'm willing to do it. And so if you're just asking and engaging in that way, there's a possibility to have that conversation for many families. I know it's not a one size fits all, but those are some of my thoughts there.
That's good. I had one of those families. So I remember this. One of the things that would be helpful, I don't know the age of the children that are at home with this particular parent that's trying to work at home and manage everything.
It doesn't say, but.
I think that try to find a really quiet, a positive time and have maybe everybody come to the kitchen table and mom say, hey, this is what I need to do for work every day. And how can we come together as a team and help me get this done so that we can work on getting some of this other stuff done? Kind of like a crisis plan, because let's face it, we're in a crisis and we're going to try to put a positive spin on it. But I think coming together when everybody's feeling pretty good, maybe right after everybody's had dinner, something, everybody's feeling kind of happy with one another, come together in a really positive way and say, hey, you guys, we need to work as a team here. This is what we need to do. Tell me what you need to have happen, and I'm going to tell you what I need to have happen, and come up with some sort of a compromise. We can't really do that right now, but let's talk about when we can do that. But what I need you to do for me is give me this kind of time during the day that I can focus on work, because, and have a conversation about what would happen if mom or dad didn't have their job that they could do from home. They might be able to have some sense of, oh, well, we probably wouldn't be able to go to the grocery store as much. Those are some of the things that we can still do, but maybe we wouldn't be able to do them quite so much if we lose that. But just kind of come together and think about some ways to collaborate and make things better at home. And even and some of us have these really difficult kids. I had a very difficult child. And, you know, he's much better now. But there were times when I would have to think to myself, I've got to find one thing to praise him about today so that, you know, we're not battling constantly. And there would be times when there really wasn't a lot that I could compliment him on, but just touching him or, you know, saying, you know, good job on dinner or whatever, any little thing would set up just some positive feedback for him. Oh, you know, she thinks I'm doing okay. Whatever it is, even if it's just the smallest thing, you know, a touch, just, I like the way you did that or whatever. And sometimes we do have to dig because sometimes our kids can really be challenging, but find something.
I think that's actually the key, right? It's like sometimes, I mean, I know obviously your situation, and I know that sometimes, you know, it can be the smallest thing, but they, you know, just the positive thank you or the positive, that was so awesome and I'm so proud of you for that. And it's like, I know you hate me, but they really, you know, internalize. I mean, that's what you get, right? But then internalizing, they know that you said that. And Judy, did you have some to add for that? I know you spoke.
I was going to just say one of the things that Leia had mentioned about, you know, complimenting, but, you know, actually kind of saying something about their self-esteem. I know for my son, I have got more buy-in if I was able to say, you know, when you completed that task, you remember how good you felt about yourself. Remember when you did, you know, such and such, and you helped your father with the garden, or when you know, moved some dirt for him, and how much your dad appreciated that, and that helped the family. That seems to help a lot. But, you know, but I'm still struggling with them, but those are some of the things that we've been very successful with. You know, so I just was going to tag team on that.
I think that that's the key, right? We're not going to solve any combative problems, and we're not going to give you a hint that's going to make your whole life become serene and compact and easy to manage. But it's all these little things that just help us cope and get through the day. And I'll be honest, I'm very frustrated, as I said, and mine basically one of them is doing their schoolwork, and the other one has we have quit school for the time being. And that has to be okay for us right now, because that's what we can manage. And going forwards, we're going to try and recoup. But I have to say that at 16 and a half, there is some responsibility for the child as well. And so, you know, we have to we don't want him to fail school, but we certainly, you know, don't want to be fighting on the front lawn about school. So there's a difference that we have to work with there. So I'm going to move on to the next question. My husband and I are struggling to survive being home together all day long. We have a good marriage, but we are snipping at each other constantly. I work remotely, but he has been furloughed. What can we do to support each other and stop being so defensive to each other's every move? That is not me. Yeah. So what can we do I mean, I know that's happening in my house. We tend to be getting on each other's nerves all the time at the moment, but what can we do to try and, what advice can you give us to try and work and live in the same house together, especially when it's uneven like that, when one of you isn't working and the other one is?
Well, I would think that there's a lot of feelings for both parents. You know, if you've been furloughed or laid off, there's going to be a lot of feelings. Even though it is the economy that's done this, there may be lots of internal feelings, emotional feelings that the spouse would have, not being able to do or bring home money that they typically had been before. So there may be a lot of things going on there. And for, you know, mom to be having to work from home, if that's something different, that's, again, it's just all change, and change is not easy. But I think just going back to some of the things that we talked about a little bit earlier with our kids is recognizing, finding something to, you know, thank that person for. You know, think about think about, try to remember what it was, some of those things that you fell in love with this person for, you know, it's like, and just try to remember some of those good things. And maybe even coming up with a memory or two, saying, you know what I was thinking about the other day, try to pull it back into a happier place. And maybe there will be less conflict if you are remembering something fun together, or you plan, hey, you know, let's get the kids to go to bed a little earlier, put them in, you know, for a movie, and you and I have you know, have some time together on the back porch. You know, find something that makes them feel they're desirable to be with, and not to be just finding things to, you know, fault them for. That's just my thought.
And to go off of that, Betsy, communication's the biggest thing for relationships in general. So sometimes that could be me talking too much and not listening enough, or vice versa. And so I think it's an equal balance of making sure you're communicating maybe some feelings, some stress that you've got going on, but not putting it too much onto the partner, but coming up with solutions, you know, the dishes in the kitchen, making fun out of it, but then also recognizing back to that self-care. Some of us just need our time to step away from a situation that's probably increasing with emotions and conflict. And I think that's important to communicate in your relationship, that if I have to step away for a moment, go outside, it is about the situation, but it gives you that moment to just go have that mindfulness, take a deep breath, and really think to the root of, why are you really upset right now? Is it your spouse? Is it the kids? Is it the alcohol that you're drinking? What is the root of it?
Yeah. I love also, I mean, communication, that foundation, and also what Betsy was saying about that idea of like, why did we fall in love? Like, joining in that story, that's such a beautiful thing. And it's not even just like romantic. It could be any person, any reason, like they're in our lives and in our relationships, right? Like, my brother drives me crazy. He lives with me, but why do I love my brother, right? Like, this can be any kind of relationship, that many of them are stressed right now. And so what is it at the core about this person that I do appreciate? It can be hard to lean into that when we're feeling stressed and when we're feeling anger. But oftentimes with that anger dialogue, I think about, well, we're ticked off because maybe our needs aren't being met in some way, or we're feeling like really cut off or disconnected. And so that's why we need to lean into that. There's a lot of really good relational scripts, even online. So if you look up like mirrored language or anything like that, so that's a script that helps guide us. So for example, I hear you saying this. Did I get that right? And then they can say yes or no. Is there more? I know it sounds really, really basic, but I tell you, when you're ticked off, if you have this kind of like safety go-to script and it helps you color inside the lines, like I know that's been really helpful for me to have that guide and help diffuse some of that tension. So I just wanted to add that too.
Thank you. Our next question. My job has let me go. I'm waiting for unemployment. I'm a single parent to 3 children under 16. I'm scared and worried about not being able to keep my house and not being able to feed them. Please tell me what practical things I can do to help myself survive this. So this is going to be less, more practical advice. What do we know about local area resources that they can reach out to? The financial worry piece is obviously there, but what practical advice can we give for, you know, kind of stopgap? I know there's some agencies here that will help with stopgap things. What practical advice can we give somebody like this?
Well, I would suggest that they call 211, which would be United Way of York County if they're in the county. And they would have those food sources that would be able to connect them with things, you know, for sort of meeting basic needs. They would also be able to direct them to if there's going to be assistance perhaps with utilities or anything else. I think the hardest part when you are in that situation is that you get so depressed that sometimes, or you can get so depressed that you have that energy, that lag of energy, where it's like, oh my gosh, I don't even know whether I can make those calls. I mean, that is just becomes Herculean. And, you know, you're just like still just dealing with all of the fallout. But making one call to maybe 211 and trying to get them to give you a list of numbers that you can say, okay, I'm going to do 2 in the morning and I'm going to make 2 more calls in the afternoon so that I can line up some things to fill in some gaps until that unemployment starts coming in for me. But yeah, I mean, those would be things, and set that little schedule for yourself that I have got to make 1 or 2 phone calls every day to try to get connected with some people who can help me. You know, and again, reach out if you want to have a church community or have a church family, reach out to them, reach out to your family, and just, even if you're not, you know, going to ask them for money or anything, of course, you know, that everyone's family is different and you would know what you can and can't do. But you need a sounding board. You need somebody who may come up with an answer for you that you might not be able to think of yourself, because your mind right now is not working at full capacity, because you've got 3 kids, you've got your job that you're thinking about, you've got what are we having for dinner and what are we having for breakfast? You know, those kinds of things. That's just a thought I have.
I was just going to say, Betsy, that was a great suggestion. That was exactly what I was going to say is, you know, breaking it down to maybe just doing 1 or 2 phone calls every day, you know, just something to move in the positive direction, but not trying to do it all at once, because I think people tend to get overwhelmed. And if we can break it down a little bit, that is always going to be very helpful. And the other thing is that, you know, this individual definitely needs to take a little bit of time, whatever time that they can, and just practice some type of self-care for themselves, you know, whether it be just going for a walk. You know, there's plenty of things that they could just do for themselves, and just maybe taking 10 to 15 minutes that, you know, and scheduling it into their day. You know, I'm a list person, so you know, I'll put that on my list, you know, that I'm going to take my walk, or I'm going to, you know, make that 1 phone call. And, and so then I feel like if I cross that off my list, you know, I got that done, you know, I accomplished something. And so that gives me, you know, that boost that I need. So, you know, anyway, that would be, you know, my suggestion as well. So.
I do know Pathways in Rock Hill may be an option for people. If that's a local person, that they can go to Pathways, and maybe it is, you know, they need somebody to hold their hand and go through that kind of, they need a case manager. And can anybody answer? I know Affinity isn't on here, but I can post their information. I know that Affinity Healthcare has some practical resources, mostly for the HIV community, but I know that they have case managers when you're going for behavioral health and stuff. And so I'll make sure that I post that as a resource as well, because that sounds more like somebody needing a bunch of practical help, and they need a case manager type situation on that. So hopefully that will help. I've posted that on our Facebook page too. My wife has started drinking every night about 5 p.m. I know she's very stressed and she has always struggled with anxiety, but we have very young children. I'm having a hard time. I'm having to take care of them and get them to bed because she is done. I am worried about her. I'm worried about our family. What can I do to help her with this? Who wants to go on that one?
I mean, it's hard to know if they're saying that she already has an existing problem, but I definitely think with those concerns, it probably is. So I would recommend, it's very difficult as a caregiver or someone who loves someone who's going through that, if she's not recognizing these behaviors. And obviously, being done at the end of the day with taking care of children is hard. And so her coping mechanism has just increased the alcohol use, but obviously that's a concern. So I would say to have some, when the person's not drinking and at a time when they're fresh, maybe first thing in the morning, if things are settled, if the kids can watch a TV show or a cartoon for a minute, to have a very, heart to heart, from a place of concern, discussion about the concerns. There is Al-Anon, which is a community for people who have family members who have addiction, and they have a lot of support and resources there. And maybe just encouraging them to reach out and, contact Keystone or another agency about getting some help and, finding some healthier coping mechanisms. Just a concern for the family, I think, is justified. And there's no easy solution to that question. I mean, I wish there was a magic wand I could wave, but I definitely know that communicating with the person before they begin making the high-risk choices in a time when everybody's kind of stable and calm, and coming from a place of concern, not accusatory, but things are stressful. We're all struggling with coping mechanisms, and recommending in a kind way some support, whether it be online support or reaching out for an assessment, depending on their history. I don't know. Obviously, if it was somebody who had problems before, I definitely think they'd need to seek some kind of assessment or services from a treatment or therapist who has experience with alcohol and drugs. But I definitely think it's not something you can ignore. It's obviously not going to go away. So especially with young children in the home, it's something that needs to be addressed as a family. We know addiction doesn't happen isolated from everything. It happens to the whole family. So we got to look at it in terms of a holistic approach and make sure that the whole family is kind of involved. So I would definitely recommend seeking some help.
I have a quick question on that. What we talked about right at the very start, what, healthy drinking or healthy amounts, being an adult, we can drink, alcohol, and that's okay. But when is it considered a problem over when is it considered just recreational, recreational? When does it become, when do we recognize it as a problem? Alex?
Yeah, so I'll tune on this. When you're starting to see self-isolation, these behaviors are happening, the individual's doing it isolated, whether it's a certain room in the house that they're drinking or using some type of substances, they're withdrawn, so very poor hygiene, they're not really taking care of their health. Definitely sleep plays into a lot of things. So not getting sleep is going to play a huge role. They're up all night long. You're seeing these behaviors. And like Ashli said, addiction, it is something that, especially when it comes to alcohol, it's something that's repetitive and it takes time until somebody is going to recognize it, whether it's you, the individual that's using, or your loved ones that are seeing these signs. So making sure that those in the household are keeping their eyes and ears open to these behaviors. One drink in the evening isn't turning into 3 or 5 as the night goes on, because at that point you're getting into the binge drinking, and that's a alcoholic pattern of drinking.
Okay, that's good. We need a benchmark on what is basically normal and what is a problem. And I know that if you're seeing problem behaviors, then it's a problem, but quite often people are good at hiding some of these. So going back to our grief question that we had initially, we know that, a lot of this is looking like a grieving process. They're kind of going through the anger and the stages, and these kids, especially kids, I'm talking about kids, and we can talk about adults too, but with this pandemic, they've been sent home and everything kind of stopped, and they had that disbelief, and then they went through the anger piece and they went to acceptance, but now they're back at the anger and the doubt and the questioning, and they seem to keep revolving through this grieving process. But what I'm seeing for my children specifically is that because there is no end in sight, there isn't a definitive date when they can rejoin society. It's almost like they've been put into some kind of time capsule, and that's creating a lot of grief and stress for them. They've been doing the FaceTime, they've been doing those kind of things that they want some concrete answers, and I don't have any to give them, which makes it even worse for them. It would be like saying you have cancer, but I don't know where it is and I don't know how we're going to treat it, but you might die from this. And, you know, that's kind of where our kids are getting stuck. So I know that some of you have adult children that are in college, and, you know, certainly Judy's speaking to the college campuses and to, you know, a lot of different people, but a lot of us are stuck in this perpetual kind of grieving process. How do we get ourselves to the point where we can say, you know, okay, I'm accepting that this is a difficult situation. I'm accepting that this is happening. How do we get to that point?
I'll just say that, and I'm no expert here, but, you know, when it comes to grief, you know, there are going to be ups and downs. There's some days that you're going to do better than others. And, you know, there's just going to be days that you're going to be down maybe about it. And then, you know, maybe you recognize some of those feelings and you're able to address them, and then you start feeling a little bit better. But I do know with grief, sometimes, you know, it isn't something that just goes away. You know, it sometimes does come back and hit you when you least expect it. And I think during this time, we're just going to have to maybe be more patient with each other, and accept that that's going to happen. You know, we're just going to, you know, have to deal with it when it comes up. But I'm not sure if that helps, but I just know for me, that's kind of what I've experienced. You know, sometimes I, you know, just have to kind of deal with it and accept it. And then, you know, it just kind of circles around, I guess.
I just want to share a resource that I actually learned about through being on a panel at Winthrop. And I want to say NAMI and a couple others were on it. And it was talking about suicide prevention and mental health. And a young lady that was on the panel, a college girl, had shared her story and what she uses to help with her grief, with bipolar disorder, the whole list of the mental health conditions that she had experienced. And it's a self-care kit. And it's just something to have on hand, whether it's a note in your phone of, all right, when I'm feeling this way, let me rely on this. And I just thought that was so wonderful. Her self-care kit won't always look like yours or mine, but she had her favorite movie that makes her laugh. She had her favorite song that uplifts her. She had some type of what is it, a touch feeling response. So whether that was, you know, a rubber band or something that she could fiddle with, and just having that package, something that you can fall back on. It won't always be the answer when you're feeling this grief or feelings, but it can help.
I think it can be frustrating too, but those are great ideas, Alex. But I think it can be frustrating for parents because our kids turn to us for answers, and we want them to not have any anxiety. This goes for all of our family members, really, especially if we're the ones that are like the go-to problem-solving person in the family. And so our kids come to us and say, how long is this going to be? Or when am I ever going to be able to see you again? My son lives away from us, and I see him but 6 feet apart, and I can see him, you know, on a weekend, or had lunch with him today, which was great. But, you know, I really miss him being here at our house, and I can't do that because he lives in a group home. But, you know, he keeps asking me those same questions, and he wants, you know, it's like I'm Anthony Fauci, you know, he thinks I know all the answers, but, you know, this is all new to us, and we've never been through anything like this. And it's scary for them, and it's scary for us too. What is it going to look like in 6 months? Maybe things will all be back to normal. Maybe we don't know. And that's the scary part. We wish we had that crystal ball. And maybe when our kids are asking us these questions, they know we don't know the answers. And that might also be causing them a lot of distress.
I have two lines of thought. And one, when we talk about grief, I think many of us go to like this old school, like Kubler-Ross, like models of grief conversation, right? Like, and a couple of pieces is that it's so neatly theorized, but it's not in a linear stage. And that's what you were speaking to, Katie, initially with your question. And what I continue to hear is this idea of like, yes, the depression, the anger, but also like this, the stage that a lot of us are in with the questioning is bargaining. Like, can I get out of this any sooner? Like, how do I get this, like the answers and get knowledge and control? And that all happens in that kind of like bargaining, like, gotta be able to do something, right? And maybe that something is asking questions. And so I think this is all a very like normal part of this process. Mm-hmm. And then the second line of thought that I was having is another dialogue that I've seen in the mental health community is talking about this in addition to grief, but also a form of the post-traumatic growth process. And what I mean by that is looking at, this is an event that just happened and it's a community experience. Like it happened, we lost so much sense of control and felt very powerless in many ways. And so within post-traumatic growth models, we talk about this model of what are the spiritual changes, what are the personal changes and strengths, how do we relate to others? Can we lean into appreciation of life and new possibilities to move through this space of this has been really difficult. So I think about it in that framework too, of this is a growth opportunity within the context of a trauma-informed approach too.
Yeah, that's interesting. That bargaining piece, especially in my house, plays out over and over and over again. It's hard to answer the same question multiple times without giving the same answer multiple times. It's basically, I don't know. So one of our last questions is 3:15. We're going to wrap it up here, but one of our last questions is tips for group homes and RTFs on lockdown, which I know has happened. A lot of our residential treatment facilities are locked down. A lot of our kids are in group homes and residential treatment facilities. Having no scheduled workshop jobs, it is harder than usual. We can post the resources afterwards if we don't have enough time, but that would be something that I would be interested in getting some papers together as well. But just initially, your thoughts on how to support both the families with children in these residential facilities and the adults, and how do we support the kids and the adults actually going through that while they're in a place where it's not technically a lockdown, but they've been locked down.
Mm-hmm. I can speak directly to that since my son is, he's literally in the same town as we are. So it's so tempting. And he spent every weekend with us, so either a Saturday all day visit, or he would actually get overnight visits. So he really misses that. One of the things that I did today was I was able to, bring lunch over for him. And, so that was a big deal. And we were able to eat out at this picnic table, and I had my mask and he was 6 feet away. And I had to arrange specially for the house to do that. One other thing that we've been doing too, every 2 weeks, because my husband and I are still working, so we're able to do that, is to give the guys a break that are in the house and to support the staff who are going in there, and working hard and not really being able to take anybody out to do anything. It's the same four walls every time. So we've been saying, what can we pick a night and bring dinner over for you guys? And so we go to a restaurant. So 2 times it's been pizza. And tonight we're actually bringing over a prepared meal from Village Pizza, which is spaghetti and meat sauce, salad, and some breadsticks. Well, the guys are going to just be over the moon for that because they're eating off of this menu that they have, and the staff has been cooking, and they go to the grocery store, and the kids can't even get out of the van. They for safety reasons, they're in the van. They're seeing outside the world, but they can't step out of the van. So it's been very hard. So just little things that we can do that might be able to give them a little thrill. Another thing I found out is that you can bring over a little care package for them. I mean, obviously, when we go over, if we're going to bring like a bag and leave it for Thomas at the front door, we make sure there's a box of 6 popcorn so that they can be shared with all the folks. And then he has his little stash of like Starburst or whatever it is that we're bringing over that's his treat. But there are some ways that you can kind of keep them connected. And one of the problems I think too is if you have someone that is your child or your loved one that's in a group home or a residential treatment facility, it's that boundary thing. And some of our folks, they want to touch, they want to hug, they want to do all those things. And this is a time when we can't physically be connected. So that's the hard part. So if you have someone that you love that is one of those huggers, they need to touch you, they're going to want to touch you, you have to come up with a plan B that will work. Is that the window wave? Is that whatever it is that you can do? Yeah. And really, the first time we were only able to do window waves with our son, he came to the window and he's knocking at the window and he's waving to me, and then he does one of these hearts and he goes to me like that. I got in the car and I'm all smiling. I got in the car and I was just like, oh, I wanted my boy, so that's hard. And you have to come up with your own plan and work with the house or whatever management you're working with, and try to come up with what would be a good way for me to, make their lives better, so that we can get through this. So.
Perfect. All right, we're going to have to wrap it up, but I'd like everybody just to kind of give their final thoughts on, the grieving process, what our families and what people have lost during this. And if you could just spend a couple of minutes kind of wrapping up and offering any resources, and then I will make sure they all get posted when we're done. Alex, do you want to start again?
Sure. So I appreciate all you guys that are on this right now, and I will share with Katie a lot of Keystone's resources and some good family coping skills. I did share it on the webinar chat, and I'll share that as well with you, Katie. I think there's some great resources for the college age, the high school, the middle school, the family, the caregiver. So I'll wrap it up with that, and I appreciate everybody's time.
Judy, you want to give us your final thoughts?
Okay, here we go. I was hitting the wrong button. Just briefly, as Alex said, I loved hearing what everybody else had to say. I learned a lot because, personally, I am dealing with a lot of these things at home. One little thing that we didn't talk about that might help, and this is something that I've been doing, probably not as much as I'd like to, but is just doing some little acts of altruism for people that are in my neighborhood, or some church folks that I know that are shut-ins. I've sent little cards, I've brought flowers over to people, and just some little things that we can do, because I think that just makes us feel better. And it just will help, our overall mood. So that's the only thing I really need to say right now.
I'd love to jump in on that, Judy. That's actually research-based too. Like, the more that we do those acts of kindness and gratitude, like, actually it is founded to improve our mood. So I love that, and really try to encourage that. So I lean into a lot of work in my work of self-compassion and also other compassion. Mindful self-compassion is really what it's called in the literature. And it has 3 components. And one is this piece of kindness to ourselves and to others. The second piece is about humanity, how we are all human and going through this together. And even if we don't live the exact same lives, we know what it all feels like to feel sadness and fear and anger. And we can connect on that meaning together. And then this last piece is really allowing the willingness to experience life as it is. And life can be really, really freaking painful and scary. And that's what we're going through right now. And the more willing we are to say, okay, this is a hard space, the more that is associated with less struggling. Not to say that it's going to hurt that much less, but it's going to be less intense pain, that we are just saying, okay, this is here, this is now, and I'm not trying to fight with it as much. I'm not trying to bargain with it as much. That helps us get to the point of acceptance as we were talking about grief. So for those of you who are interested more in this, there's a ton of materials out there on self-compassion. Kristen Neff writes about this. It's just really good stuff. So that's my parting gift, I suppose, that I'd like to give to all of you.
Thank you. Can you just tell me, is Southeast Psych still offering virtual groups, or are they, because I know they do teen and adolescent groups, so are they still offering that on virtual, or?
Glad you asked, Katie. Yeah, so we are indeed doing virtual groups. We are doing virtual therapy. I'm doing a virtual teen group right now on grief, actually. Totally forgot to say all that. So, and we also do parent coaching and learning coaching too for teens who are struggling with academics. So we do a lot of different resources and talks too, if you just need support in your community.
Thank you. So then I'll ask Ashli if you would offer your final thoughts, and let me know, the All Youth on Board, is that still meeting virtually? Is that still a place that kids can connect with each other, but just virtually? And how do they do that?
Yes, we did have a Zoom meeting with our some of our club members we were able to get in touch with yesterday. We asked them about doing some virtual things, and they were kind of, I don't know. I don't know if they're burned out of Zoom, but we are going to have another meeting in 3 weeks, and I'll make sure Abby gets that information out there for them. But it was good to see their faces, and we are doing a little something for our seniors. And I totally, the whole time y'all were talking, Betsey was talking, I wanted to say the same thing about the altruism and giving back. I saw something on Facebook one day, and I was not having a good day, and I was like, I can do that. I can get those things together and do that today. And I did it first, and it really did have an impact on my mood for the rest of the day. Taking books and things to residential facilities that would be helpful. Trying to engage them, giving them things to do, donating a game. I think those are great ideas. The resource for the person who was talking about unemployment, I did think about Pilgrims Inn here in Rock Hill. They have a lot of resources if you want to link to them. That was actually, I saw they were doing a fundraiser for some things, but they have food-based, employment-based, and I think some children-based case managers and things. So that's an option. Vocational rehab. Those are some things that are available. I just wanted to mention. And, you know, I know that this is just, you know, we have our lived experience. Some of us have degrees, but we're all just figuring this out too. There's no tech. I didn't learn about this in school. I've never had, you know, I've heard many therapists talk about a lot of their sessions are about COVID, and it's just like grieving is the closest thing we can think of, and anxiety to deal with it. But, you know, you were asking earlier, how do we move to acceptance? And nobody likes this answer, and it's the same with what's an appropriate amount to drink. That differs based on everyone. I mean, there is no perfect answer to give you to help make it easy. Sometimes you have to, it depends on the person, and it does take, that's why we do assessments, and that's why we talk to people and look at all kinds of different things, their family history, their body size, how much they're using, their tolerance. Those are things that you can't just do quick and easy sometimes. So I'm not trying to slough that off in that answer, but I also think that's what, when we're talking about dealing with our families and anxiety and COVID and all the things that are happening, I don't think we're going to move through the grieving process of what we lost quickly. I think some of us may and some of us may not, but I think sometimes we want to put a timeline on when it will end, but there isn't a timeline all the time, and we have to kind of reconcile ourselves to that. And that's not easy to do, especially if you like to check off your to-do list. It is something that is circular, and we may gain some acceptance in one area, but take a step back in others. So I know we're uncertain about the future, and but I think reaching out like this and hearing that other people, you're not alone, even professionals are struggling. You know, we're all trying to figure ourselves out and still, you know, still help others. and plan for others. And, you know, sometimes I can say I'm a counselor, but I'm not being a great parent today, not using my techniques or my toolbox. So I have to remind myself, hey, what am I supposed to do in this situation versus, you know, if I deal in anxiety. So I think we're all trying to figure it out. There is no perfect way to handle this. There is no person who's, I mean, there's no person who's handling this wonderfully. We're all struggling some way or another, whether we show it or not. We're all adapting. So I guess I'm just trying to say, you're not alone. We're all together. And if you feel alone, reach out.
And it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not be okay.
Absolutely.
It's okay to struggle. Yeah. So Betsy, final thoughts. We have to get off in just 1 minute, but final thoughts, and just let us know about the support groups again.
Okay, well, great. I wanted to thank everybody again for being here. I think this is just awesome. And I'm glad it's recorded so we can pass it along. But NAMI Piedmont Tri-County has support groups, and once a week for families and once a week for individuals that live with a mental health condition. If you're not sure, and then we also have a group that meets for parents of children and adolescents. So if you're not sure where you fit in, reach out to us, and Katie will post our number, and we can make sure that you get into the right group, or you get, you know, connected where you need to be connected, whether it's with Keystone or wherever it is that you need to be connected, with Leah's group, whatever. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. Remember, all of us, what we're going through right now, there's no playbook for this. There's no guidebook that we can refer to. So we're all kind of flying by the seat of our pants and doing the best job that we can. Okay.
Yep, flying by the seat of our pants. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. We really appreciate it. We're going to do another one of these in a couple of weeks, and hopefully we'll see you back on one of these. And if anybody, if I will post all the resources, so everything that we've mentioned, everybody will be able to access those. So thank you all. Have a great day. Bye.